6 months ago, I ran stage one of the boundary survey process. So I figure today we'll kind of briefly recap stage one to kind of set the stage, and then we'll jump into stage two, which is the field work. I'm also going to tell you up front that, the actual, nuts and bolts of the stage two will likely not be covered just because, there's how to take a measurement, how to use the instrument, all that is not going to be covered tonight. But I've learned a lot of things um, to do on the front end and the back end of stage two that have really helped me over the years and are continually improved. So let's jump in. And I know I said I hate PowerPoints, but I put something together tonight. So we'll go through and let's talk about the three-stage process. Can everybody see my screen okay? Okay, good. And I'm going to make sure we have our chat pulled up as well here so we can see your messages. All right. So my philosophy for many years has been a three-stage survey process. We've got stage one, which is the record research, stage two, which is the field work, and then stage three, which is the analysis and the creation of the report and the map. Now, there is a stage four, which is the riparian allocation I do on lakes and waterways, but let's just stick to three stages. So stage one is the record research, stage two is the field work, and stage three is the analysis and report map generation. In each of those stages, we have a philosophy of systems. So, for example, whenever we do a start a process, we've got, let's see here, stage one. Let's pull up our stage one form. So a new client shows up. Let's just go through it here together. So a new client shows up and they say something like, I've got a riparian dispute with my neighbor. I think my neighbor's dock is blocking my boundary, my view to the lake, whatever is going on. So you get a call from attorney and they give me the basics, which is the address of the property, the outline of what the dispute is, and what they're hoping to solve. So this is the the Geis property right here, and that's the flex over here. So I keep jumping back and forth here, but let's see if we can see it better. So I'm going to fast forward. This is Lake Down, which is basically a circular lake. And within Lake Down, we've got the Geis property. To the west, we've got the Anujas, who are not in this dispute at all. And then we have the Flex, which are to the east. Now, the problem is that the Geises believed that the Fleck dock was encroaching on their exclusive riparian area, and they wanted a riparian allocation survey. Okay, no problem. So we start with a three-stage process, and we add a fourth stage for the riparian allocation. Now, if you look here, at first, it seems like the Fleck dock, the Geises are looking straight out. The Fleck dock is off to the side. It doesn't look like much. But if you zoom out, you can see that the center of this lake here is not straight out. It is farther to the east. But anyways, that's just kind of a setup for the analysis. So we start off, we got the scenario started. So we've got this form called the CF 470. And the CF 470 is basically like a checklist of all the stage one stuff I want to see. So we got some basic info, Google Earth, some questions, pleadings, initial review, property adjoiners, GIS data, aerial photos, plats, all kinds of stuff in here. And this is going to be my outline for the stage one process. I'm not going to go too far into this because we talked about this 6 months ago, but anything I want to see in terms of record research, I've got some places for it just as a reminder for how things flow. So step one, you log in to whatever you need to go to, the Parcel GIS, talk to the attorney, get the address, pull the latest deed. This is the starting point for stage one. Okay. Then the second thing I do is I go onto Google Earth, go to the property location, and I pick up two things. I enter the address here, and I pull up a pin for the property location, which is the Geis, the plaintiff in this lawsuit. And I also like to draw a polygon of, not just the extent of the properties, but of kind of like the search area. If I want to go find some boundary monuments in the neighborhood, if I want to do other things, I've got this polygon here, which may include the entire subdivision. It may include all the adjoiners, just as a an easy way to do this. What do you guys think? What kind of instrument or what kind of device am I going to load this KML into in the next few weeks or months directly? Just drag it over and use it.
Could you load it into CAD?
Yes, yeah, that's a great suggestion. So this could be our
You could
search
load it
area for
in,
CAD. So we
you could load
could
it into your drone and have your drone fly that area
yes,
specifically.
that's right. Yeah. So those are two great answers. So um, later on, when we pick up the shape files of the property, we could mask out all the parcels within this polygon. And Jacob, that's also a great answer because we basically just throw this into the drone and then we fly the whole area. So not only do we have our subject properties here, but we basically got the entire little neighborhood on Wonder Lane, and we've also got the adjoiner to the south, the neighborhood to the north. This is a wastewater treatment little area here, and some other parcels. So it's nice to use as like a mask. This is my area I'm most interested in. Um, and I put that in the main directory of the client folder. So if I ever want to go to this property really quickly in Google Earth, I can just click on the point, click on the polygon, and quickly navigate to where this is in Google Earth, which is really nice too. So we've gotten the basic info, we've gotten the Google Earth files, the root directory. The next thing we're going to do is go to the clerk of court, because the only clients that we take are attorneys. So this has to be some kind of civil litigation that they're going through. So we pull up the document the plaintiff has filed against the defendant, which is called what? What do you think, Heather?
No idea.
If you're really angry with your neighbor, what do you file against them?
Just a complaint?
Yeah,
Civil
it's the
suit.
complaint.
Oh.
And in Texas, it's called a petition. So the complaint or the petition. And Jacob, what does the defendant have to answer back with?
That's a good question. I'm not aware.
What do you guys think?
I think in California, it's just a response.
Yep. Yeah, it could be a response. In some states, it's called an answer. So you have the complaint and the answer, you have the petition and the response, whatever they want to call it. And there could be other things in this record, like expert disclosures of the other survey experts could be in there. There could be motions, all kinds of stuff. But I basically read it from start to finish because it gives you a perspective of what these parties think they're entitled to. Like, what is the beef between these people or companies, and what do they want? So we got our Google Earth file. We read the complaint and the answer and the motions and any other documents that have been filed, which is helpful. And I've also typically get sent a bunch of files from the attorney. Now, some of the attorneys will just give you the address of the property and their issue, and that's it. But a lot of other attorneys or landowners will give you some deeds, they'll give you some prior surveys, they'll give you the complaint and the answer sometimes, all kinds of stuff. The smallest, oh, I missed a comment here. Conversation moved on, but a KMZ can be loaded in data collector. Yes, that's definitely search for monuments, proposed aerial target locations, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, Hunter, this KML could be really used for anything, or KMZ. So those are all good answers. The smallest document cache I've been given by an attorney is 0 documents. And the biggest I've been given is 97,000 documents. So it varies from case to case for sure. And what's really funny is the 97,000 documents provided by the other surveyor in the case, 30,000 of them were either corrupted or ink blotches. It's very exciting. Next, we go into the property GIS and just go to the property location, type in the address or where this is. And I like to get the basic property card, which has the parcel number, which has the address, all that. But what's really nice in Florida is that the property GIS often links to the clerk of court. So you can download the latest deeds directly from the property assessor's website and go into the clerk of court. So it really kind of saves a step because, first of all, we've got every parcel that's in dispute, but also every adjoiner. So you have the Geis property, you've got the Fleck property, you've got the all of these adjoiners in Google Earth here as listed as parcel ID, address, owner, all that good stuff. But you've also got one neighbor, two neighbor, the treatment plant up here. You've got the subdivision plat typically in the parcel GIS as well. So once we get this thing going, Tony, are all those 97,000 documents billable? Absolutely. If somebody gives you a set of documents, they expect you to read and understand everything that they've given you. And, the attorney was so mad because she spent an entire week reading over those documents, no matter whether they were, ink blotches or individual photos or whatever. She spent her entire week. She said she put on a headphones at her office and she listened to podcasts the entire week as she slowly clicked through every single document. And if the client sends you something, they expect you to read it, and to understand it. And if it's important, to tell them about it. So if you're not reading every single of those 97,000 documents given to you, then you're going to have an upset client if they understand their expectation. So yes, absolutely. And it's going to cost a week's time. So 500 times 8 times 5 to read through all those documents. But you know, if you find a dozen really good documents within those 97,000, I'd say it's definitely worth your money. I think Rob is retired, so he has lots of time on his hands. All right. So we've gotten our parcel map information, tax ID, address, owner, all that for the adjoiners, for the subject properties. That's easy. Next comes the title reports. And there are a lot of good sites. Oh yeah, he'll do it for only $400 an hour. That's a deal. I could make 175 bucks an hour off you, Rob. So I like to use Pro Title USA because they're inexpensive and they're fast. So all you have to do is enter in the address of the property, the parcel ID, all these things. And I always pick the 30-year search, and I pay for all the extras. So I pay for any extras, I pay the rush fee, everything, and I order a title report for the um, for the subject parcels, for the adjoiners, and sometimes I'll buy a title report for every parcel in the neighborhood just to see if there's anything interesting in there to find. Um, and so, Pro Title has been very good sometimes, kind of mediocre other times, but generally they're pretty reliable. It's a couple $100 per title report, and pay the rush fee. It's worth it. So a couple $1,000 in title report fees, because what I'm hoping is that I'm going to find a bunch of chain of title documents in my independent search, and they're going to find documents in their search. And if my search and their search are different, then that raises a red flag to me. So I'm all about people checking people. And if I can pay someone to independently check what I'm doing or my office is doing, it's definitely worth the money. All right. Next, since we're in Florida, we're in the public land survey system. And my easiest way to do this is to go into Laban's, go to land records, and start looking for corner records. But can someone tell me what is the easiest way to figure out the section, township, and range of this parcel? Title companies used to provide surveyors those reports for free. George, why would they give them to you for free?
Because they liked us. But now I'm talking 35, 40 years ago. It's only been maybe the last 20 years they started charging for them seriously.
It seems like that, in Texas, there were these title abstractors who really, had all the documents, and they were, the surveyor's go-to source. And it seems like all the abstractors in Texas have disappeared as well. So yeah, disappointing things, but really it's just a billable expense. So in the end, what does it really matter?
But
Yeah, that's right.
we all need a good, strong, solid, reliable ally at a title company or two, for sure.
Yes, and I wish I could find Pro Title is good because they're national. Whenever I'm working in like Florida or Texas or California, it's been a real struggle to find a local title company to be reliable. And a lot of them, they they don't even understand why I'm asking for a title report. Well, are you buying this property? No, I'm a surveyor. Oh, well, we only do title reports when you're closing with us. Oh, okay, sure. Whatever, right? Um, Dean says, if your client has a boundary dispute, shouldn't they have hired an attorney? Wouldn't they provide the title report, or is it a rule for surveyors to provide their own title report? So those are three good questions, Dean. So question one, did they hire an attorney? Yes, we do not take any type of surveys where the property owner is the client. It's always the law firm. So question one is yes. Question two, wouldn't they provide the title report? Well, a lot of attorneys we work with, most of them, this is their first property dispute in their career, or it's been decades since they've done it. So 99% of the time, the attorney does not have a title report. And third, is it a rule for surveyors to do their own? No, it is not a rule. You could have, you can rely on anything you want to. But the scary thing is that if you rely on an attorney's title report and they're missing a page, then you're liable for their mistake. So one of my general rules is not to take any documents from the client and rely on them unless they're independently verified. Now, do you have to do that? No, of course not. If you want to do your own research, if you want to rely on the attorney, whatever you need to do, as long as it's reasonable, you can do it. But I just don't like to rely on the attorney's stuff because you never know what they're up to. Yeah. So, okay, in Virginia, we rely on the owner or attorney. Yeah, Dean, I had a case where a surveyor was doing an Alta and he got like a 2,000-page title report. It was huge. And there was one page missing from that title report, and it was worth tens of millions of dollars because it was a reciprocal parking lot easement. And the client, the building owner, sued the surveyor for that much money because the surveyor did not independently verify the completeness of the chain of title. And it was kind of crazy because what are the chances of that happening? But again, you always have to, cover your butt. And, if you're getting a document from a third party source, you should do your best to verify the document. Don't just take it and accept it as true, because title companies are sometimes very good and they're sometimes very lazy. And you have no idea what kind of good or bad day the title abstractor is having when they have your file. So, like, I guess you like hope for the best, plan for the worst is my best recommendation, because I've worked with some of these Texas title companies and sometimes they're so good. And then sometimes the same company is so bad and you just can't get a consistent result. So I would definitely be careful. um, so all those answers were correct. Earth Point PLSS overlay is amazing. Turn off the polygon, turn on the townships. What about chain of title beyond 20 years? So I always order a 30-year report and I go back further myself because it seems like title companies, they're so obsessed with the marketable title, MILTA, Marketable Land Title Act or whatever. Well, why do you ever need to go back more than 30 years? Well, because we're not insuring title, we're surveying property. They don't get it either. So yeah, 20, 30 years for a title report is reasonable, but you may have to go back much further. Remind me to tell you about the title record I found here. Well, before we go to stage 2, we'll talk about what I found in the title report. So went up to pull up Earthmate. Pull up Earthmate, get the section, township, and range. dial this in to Laban's, which is an excellent website for Florida, which has the certified corner records. And oh boy, do we have a whole bunch of corner records for this section and township and range and all that good stuff. So I download all these, and the way that I have learned to name these is that the BLM has a unique coordinate identifier for every corner in a township. And I name this the identifier, like, 900, 600, and then I name it the year so I can figure out the list of all these corners. And I basically tell the AutoCAD drafter to put all this stuff in a GIS, and we'll take it with us later. So we've gotten the title reports, we've done our independent deed research, we've gotten the PLSS corners, we've gotten the Google Earth images, we've gotten a whole bunch of surveys from the client, and this is the same. Let's try this again. This is the same file. So I've gotten these surveys from the client, and so there's about 10 surveys between these two parties that have been done over the past decade. And the only thing that is consistent between these surveys, at least in terms of the riparian boundary, is that no one agrees on anything. Which is, but there are some really good boundary monuments depicted on these surveys. So if you look at the surveys, you've got, let's pull up a better one. Fishman. Created by Land Surveys. If somebody tell me how I rotate this thing. Here we go. We gotten some really good monuments here. We got a point of beginning, which has no monument description. That's exciting. And we have one monument, two monuments, three monuments, four monuments. So we definitely got some things to go searching for here. Now, let me show you what really freaked me out. So here is the Fleck property. And do you guys see let's see if we can zoom out a little bit. Let me see if I can, yes, here we go. Do y'all see this weird like triangle thing right here? It says 31.89. Everybody see that?
Yes, we're just all muted.
Okay. Now, this is the same surveyor. This is the same property of the same surveyor 6 months later. Triangle? No triangle.
There you go.
Now, this one is not stamped, apparently. The no triangle is not stamped either. But I have 5 different surveys from the same person, and 3 have a triangle and 2 have no triangle. That's pretty, what is going on? So I called him and he said it was just a typo. And I found, I downloaded the most current deed, and the most current deed had a typo, a Scribner's error in the legal description, and I did not go back and look at the prior deeds. That was scary. Okay, red flag number one. Now, the other interesting thing about this title report was that about this case is that when I ordered the title report, it came with, let's see if we can find it. I think this is Fleck. Let's see if Flex has it in here. It came with, here's a map. Maybe it's not in this one. Let's try. The next one. It's got all the usual restrictions. It's got all, no. Here we go. It came with this agreement. So it's a boundary line agreement from 1955. And it says that it was executed due to a lawsuit in the Orange County Circuit Court, which is the same place that the current lawsuit is. And it says there's a surveyor, William Hart, and it came with this map. And I kept thinking, how in the heck am I going to find the palm tree that starts at this? So we have this, it was obviously a dispute over section corners. And you've got this iron, you've got some kind of palm tree, you've got a line of the PLSS. And I kept trying to figure out, where in the heck is this line? Like, who was the Alsup? Who was Lawrence? Well, it turns out this is the shared Geis-Fleck line that was set by a boundary line agreement in 1955. And I had to hold it up and look at it sideways and whatever. But after I realized what this was, I realized that I don't want to spoil the fun for stage 3, but these monuments were missing on the shared boundary line after stage 2, and we had to use some math and some other ingenuity to reset these corners based on the 1955 agreement. And nobody knew that there was this boundary line agreement between these properties, not the owners, not the attorneys, not anybody. And what was really funny was the surveyor in his deposition had a lot of nasty things to say about my report, especially over this shared line. But the attorney asked him, well, here's this agreement. Did you find this agreement when you did your survey? And he said, no. And then the attorney asked him to read the agreement. And he said, you know, Mr. So-and-so, if you would have seen this agreement, would your boundary location be different than it is in your report? And he said, yes. And then, you know, it all went downhill from there. So it was very exciting to find this agreement in the title report, in the record. So there's always a smoking gun, which makes it really exciting. Well, so we did. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if he had said no, it wouldn't have changed his perspective. That wouldn't have been an acceptable answer either.
Right. You know,
just a couple more questions before it went all downhill for him.
Yes. And, you know, a cross-examination is meant to get the expert to commit to something. Like, you commit to X in the deposition, and now you cannot say Y at the trial. But the cross-examination is also meant to discredit the expert's methods and results and data and all that stuff. And, you know, after that, the land survey expert gave up completely. He just, every time the attorney asked him a question, he would agree with the attorney on anything. So it was like 2 hours of just constant agreement. Yeah, I could have done a better job at the field work. Yeah, I could have used better equipment. Yeah, it could be X and it could be Y. So this was like the linchpin for the entire deposition. And it was a crazy deposition. It was hard to watch. But it was just really exciting because you get to find something that nobody else knew about and show them, and they're all shocked. But they don't really know what to do with it until you explain it, which makes it even more fun. But this was a very interesting boundary, land boundary, which we had to do before we got to the riparian allocation. All right, so I just spent 35 minutes of my time on stage one, which we did last time, but that's okay. So now we get to stage two. All right, stage two is the field work. Again, just like stage one has the form, we've also got a form here for stage two. And let's pull up the order form. This is just a draft because we're getting stage two together. But I like it because we've got the date, the project name, the client name, the location. What is our objective? Like our objective for GEIS is to, locate the riparian area, exclusive riparian area of GEIS and FLEC. That's our ultimate goal. So to do that, we're going to do a boundary survey, we're going to do some topographic stuff, we're going to do an as-built, and then for other, we're going to do a riparian allocation. Okay. So what kind of equipment? Now, this should really be separated by equipment and supplies because we've got, some GNSS equipment. We're going to have the drone, going to have a laser scanner. Let's take Wesley's question. So Arnold, yes, these are all forms I made. Wesley says, what are your thoughts on the somewhat common blurb? This survey was completed without the benefit of additional title research documents that effect or some language. So Wesley, that's a great question. And the first thing I'll say is we should add in here not just a type of survey, but we should add standards. So what standard must this survey meet? So for the boundary survey, it's got to meet FS 472. It's got to meet Administrative Code 5J17. And it could be a lot of optional stuff, like the TSPS Manual of Practice has standards, ASPRS aerial photography has standards. And if you look at most statutes and administrative code for surveyors, it says that the surveyor must conduct a sufficient level of record research to find a boundary. So if this survey map is not conducting the research required by the statute and the administrative code, then that's not going to fly. What do you all think about that?
Yeah, 100%, Tony.
Okay, good. So
that statement right there just says basically that
I was too lazy to meet the minimum standards, so here you go.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Now, remember, there are really several types of standards. There's the mandatory standards like the administrative code and the statute, and there's also optional standards which you can put in your contract, like the TSPS Manual of Practice. The ALTA would probably be mandatory for sure. ASPRS, FGDC, all these are standards you may or may not have to meet, but you can meet them for additional money, right? So definitely get a contract and put in your contract what standards you're going to do this to. All right, so we got our basic info, we've got our types of surveys, we got our equipment, and really there should be details here. Like if I'm going to do a static survey, I want to have 6 IMLID RS receivers with goodies. What about the drone? Now, whenever I have a boundary survey, I always fly it just to get an ortho photo. Now, is that ortho photo, accurate to the nearest hundredth of a foot or whatever? If I'm going to use my Mavic, the answer is no, most likely. But if I've got a topographic survey, or something else, then I'll pull out the M350 with the LiDAR, and that thing really does, with ground control points, measure very accurately. So you have to pick, what are you going to bring with you? You're going to bring your GNSS, you're going to bring your total station, you're going to bring your X7 laser scanner, you're going to bring all the goodies. Perfect. Now, the last thing, which I think a lot of people do not really fully consider, is the personnel. Because, at my office, we've got a drone pilot, we've got a field tech, we've got an office tech, we've got all these people, but are these people qualified to do the work we're going to do? The drone pilot is UAS 107 qualified. They've taken a course with the Matrice dealer to run the LiDAR. They know how to set ground control points. Perfect. But a lot of times, survey companies will send people out they will send technicians out to do work that they have not received formal training for, which is a little dangerous, because if you're going to process the imagery, you better have taken the PIX 4D course. So personnel, equipment, type of survey, good to go. Next, the days before. Get your equipment together, get everything charged. What is the one thing that a lot of people forget to check with regards to equipment before the field survey?
The batteries.
The batteries, for sure. Yep. And that's a technical requirement. What about something that you may have to prove later on? The last calibration. Whenever I have a field crew work with me in different states, I tell them, you got to have whatever instruments require calibration, you have to show me a calibration certificate. And they always say, oh, it's been calibrated. Oh, it's been calibrated. And then I say, okay, show me. Give me the certificate. Email it to me. And then they, oh, I got to call my dealer and rent a piece of equipment. I got to rent a total station tomorrow because my calibration is 2 years old. Okay. So, yes, that's right, Laurie. My drone requires a firmware update every other day. And we joke that the drone is actually downloading all of our mapping data to the Chinese Republic. So they give us firmware updates, and we give them every photo we've taken over the past week, because it doesn't matter how shortly you've updated the firmware, it always requires another firmware update. And it does suck to do the updates in the field. It makes everyone crazy. So in the day or two before, we get the terrestrial equipment charged up and updated. We get the drone charged up and updated. We make sure that the supplies are in the truck, because we don't do field surveys every day. So we have to load up the supplies in the truck, and just make sure everything is 100% per the order form. I went to California and I put my GPS receiver, the antenna, in my check bag, and I drove 2 hours to the job site. And then I realized that the TSA had taken the GPS antenna out of the bag. and kept it. So my IMLID RTK receiver was gone, and they left a message in the bag that said, your bag has been inspected by TSA, and it was gone. They left the box for the GPS antenna in my bag, but they took the GPS antenna out of the box and kept it. And I had to drive 2 hours back, rent a set of GPS equipment, and come back to the job site. I was so angry. So rule number 1, pro tip. We should put this in here. Duplicate. I've got some pro tips in here. Pro tip. Never commercial travel with survey gear. Never, 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 never. I've had so many bad experiences after my GPS receiver was taken from me, never to be seen again. It was it. I'm done. They won. They got me, and it's true. They got me, and maybe I deserved it, or shouldn't have put it in the check bag, but never will I ever travel commercial with survey gear. Yeah, exactly, Rob. I had a bad magneto in my airplane, and I took the commercial flight, and that was a $3,000 mistake. So pro tip number 2, thoroughly plan for this. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I'll definitely take you up on that, Britt. Pack the GPS. I'll never do it again, Jason. I don't care. You're right. Should have had it in a locked TSA approved. It was in my suitcase. Oh yeah, with your firearm. Yeah, not in California. I don't think Californians like guns very much for some reason. So plan thoroughly, and it's amazing, the technicians like to fight about using systems. Like, I know how to do it. Like, I've been doing this for years. I know how to do it. Follow the checklist item by item, because yeah, exactly. It really freaks out TSA with the metal detectors. They don't know what it is, and it really freaks them out. But make the technicians run the checklist step by step. And one of the really fun things I did over the past year was write this UAS manual. So I have a 3-stage UAS manual, and it has videos. Step 1, 24 hours, here's your checklist. Confirm the UAS license, charge the batteries, choose the proper drone. And I've got videos for all this stuff. So everything you need to do with the drone has a video. You just watch the video step by step, and you've got to check this off because forgetting something is going to be important. So days before, file your NOTAM to fly the drone, because I don't want to hit an airplane. I don't want to cause any problems. Get your drone ready. And another thing I like to do is get a field package together. So the field package is the DWG working sketch. It's a CSV search file. It has the surveys, the corner records, the any kind of maps we have, construction drawings, whatever. And I print 3 copies, one for me, one for the technician, one for the client. And I print them in 11 by 17. And I also print them in an ArchC. Rob, that's a good suggestion, the DXF. And we're still working on the working sketch system. So if you have any suggestions, please email me. So we got the hard copy. Now, my other pro tip is going to be Regrid. Regrid, their GIS data is so good sometimes, I can just skip pulling out the working sketch completely, and I can just go find property corners using Regrid on my telephone or iPad and it's really amazing. So if you're too lazy to make a working sketch, check out Regrid. Make sure you have the proper PPE. You've got your vest, you've got your pants, you've got your steel toe boots if you're on a construction site, hard hat. It doesn't matter whether we're going to a residential, industrial, whatever. We take all this with us because you never know when you're going to need the full PPE to stay in compliance with whatever's going on. And I've got a duffel bag for every member of the stage 2 team. And we all carry this stuff in our duffel bags, and it's a personal bag, so it's yours. Next pro tip is don't cheap out on the work truck. You know, having construction lights front and back is really important because I feel like everybody wants to hit you when you're stopped somewhere. Oh yeah, this is what happens when your employee's 16-year-old daughter decides to go driving in the snow. You got your front and lights, your front and rear lights. I like having a steel bumper in the front and back because before I was worried about hitting things, but really everything bounces off of a steel bumper. So you can hit almost anything. Hey, maybe I need a steel bumper for the side of the car too. Like a cage. Also, one of my best upgrades has been this cell phone booster, and this cell phone booster will raise your cell coverage. You'll get a cell signal anywhere. And the frustrating thing is that oftentimes the network RTK, the cell phone service will be bad in areas. Well, this thing has a hotspot. You can get on the hotspot. You can get a really good cell signal, and you can use the network RTK where many other places it wouldn't work. So if you want to make one good investment in 2025, buy yourself a WeBoost. They're really nice. Oh yeah, I like that. Winches are for when you get stuck and want to go back, not when you want to go forward. Now, I have the same rule for 4-wheel drive. The truck stays in 2-wheel drive until you get stuck, and then it's time to go to 4-wheel drive and leave, because you can get yourself into some very bad situations in 4-wheel drive, and there's no alternative to fixing it unless you're going to use the winch. So yeah. All right. So we have our setup. Now we've got the arrival on the job site. And my rule is the first thing we do when we show up is check in with the client, with the property owner, with security, whoever. Because you want to say, hey, I'm here to do a survey. And if you're working for a larger company, there's about a 95% chance that the security people and or the site manager has no idea that you're coming. Most crews point not 20 feet away. Yeah, exactly. That's why you need like a side-by-side. All right. Step 2 is the safety briefing. So you show up, you check in. Now it comes time for the safety briefing. So the environment, is it rural, suburb, urban, whatever? What are the usual hazards? Typically traffic and crazy property owners are my number 2. And I often hire a security guard, off-duty police officer to come with me because you never know what state of mind these people are going to be in today. Site-specific hazards, typically in Florida, you've got your gators and your snakes. Oftentimes you get a lot of traffic, which is the usual. Buddy system, always have 2 people together. Nobody gets left alone for any reason. And usually I like to bring at least 4 or 5 people. Sometimes I brought up to 3 or 4 crews because everybody stays together and everybody, yeah, Florida man. Yeah, exactly. Equipment, always use it as intended. I say this because I've got a case right now where a technician put a RTK antenna on a 20-foot prism rod, extended it up, hit a transformer line, and electrocuted himself and killed himself, which is really sad. And the company had no safety training as regard to how to use this equipment. So use the equipment as intended. I had one technician doing a class with me, and he wanted to race the drone like 100 miles an hour around downtown Orlando. And I was, as a pilot, you're always thinking about dangers. So never do anything that's risky. And this person's like flying around Orlando with this drone at 100 miles an hour, terrifying me, and everybody else thought it was cool, but use the equipment as intended. What else would you guys include in your safety briefing? Lori, Jacob, Rob, what else would y'all include in the safety briefing?
I'd make sure that there's communication, whether you're using radios or phones. I think that can be something that's, especially if you're in a remote place, it's easy to not have signal.
That's a good idea, yeah. And we got a set of walkie-talkies, little clip-on cheapo things, but they work pretty well. It's a good one. But yeah, text, phone, walkie-talkies. What else?
We make sure that the crews also have the proper safety gear, like a first aid kit, that type of stuff that is up to date also. So about every 6 months, at least every year, we make sure that the crews go through their trucks and update anything that they may have either depleted supplies from or supplies have expired.
That's a great idea. Yep. Definitely have your emergency stuff in the car. I like the closest emergency services. Oh yeah, I like the CPR as well. That's smart, Lance.
I leave my phone, my iPhone. I always let my wife track me down. That way she knows exactly where I'm at in every job site, just in case if anything happens.
That's a good idea. Yep. So having your Find My iPhone where you tell someone in advance, who have you told of your whereabouts? How about that? And times. That's a good one. So if I don't come back in 4 hours, come find me, right?
And also the iPhones have those little, like those coins. Inside my instrument, I glued those iPhone. I forgot the name of it. I glue it on
AirTag.
my AirTag.
Yeah.
I glue the AirTag on all my instruments, just in case they get robbed, or just in case I get lost or they can't find me, they could track me down. So that's
That's
another way.
smart. Yes, Lance, I like that. I put a Starlink Mini in the work truck, and it's really nice. It has like a suction cup, plugs into a cigarette lighter. That's a smart choice, because you can use your network RTK through that. You got internet. That's really helpful. I like it. All right, equipment setup. Now, we're all going to think, okay, you start the data collector, you make a new job, you call it the whatever job. What are some really important settings in this data collector when you set up the equipment?
Definitely your state plane coordinate zone.
Yep. Your horizontal, your vertical datum, your projection. That's very important. It's amazing how inaccurate your work is if you're in Denver and you're using the Alabama North state plane coordinate system. Shocking. Vertical datum, absolutely. Correct geoid and state plane coordinates, that's correct. Correction source. One thing I like to change is the collection time. So the default collection time on all RTK GPS is 1 second. Measure 1 second. Measure 1 second. I do a 3-minute measurement on every RTK shot, and I typically measure it twice. So 3 minutes twice. Same thing for total stations. You bought a robotic total station for 50 grand. Why not have it take triple measurements and do a mean? Why not? So length of time collected, proper horizontal, vertical projection, that's important. Another thing is always keep a flash drive with you and back up your data. Fieldbook, I love elementary surveying. They have Fieldbook examples in the appendix. Whenever I'm doing a boundary, print the appendix. If I'm doing a topo, print the appendix. And you've got the name, the project name, the client name, the party members, the equipment serial number, all that stuff is in your Fieldbook. You do a morning check-in at an NGS monument or some other kind of government monument. You make sure it matches with your data sheet. And then I like to do the Easter egg hunt. So I go and find at least, half dozen NGS other monuments where I can use for the next few days. I report them as found on the NGS data recovery form, take some pictures, whatever. Then I go on to the boundary and we find our monuments, and I like to do this like, this is kind of a mediocre cage because this young man was just learning to do it, but I like 3 different laths. I like to spend lots of money on flagging and paint and other kinds of, whatever I can find, I'll use it. So what I can find this easy if I have to come back in a few months. So paint everything up, put laths around it, make it look really nice, take a bunch of pictures. And the pictures I take are close up on the monument, chest height on the monument, and then I look as a perspective north, east, south, west. So I have 6 shots, the close up, the chest height, north, south, east, and west. And now I've got 6 pictures of the monument. Why do I do that? Because whenever I want to put it in a report or something, I'm like, oh, look, I found a nail. I wonder what corner that's referring to. God only knows. It's like you got 30 monuments. And, oh, that's a good one, Rob. Yeah, put it with the data collector and it'll connect it up. That's a great. I did that last time with the Trimble data collector, and it works really well.
Camera angle is just not good enough. Like it's only like a one meg or 2 meg camera, so it's
okay. It's kind of crappy.
The detail's not the greatest, so
that's disappointing.
I know.
One day you'll have like a 50 megapixel camera.
Exactly.
So the flights, we've got our cheap drone, the Mavic. We've got our expensive drone, the Matrice. I love the Matrice, but it's got a main box for the drone. It's got a box for the LiDAR. It's got a box for the P whatever camera. It's got a box for the batteries. It's got a box for something else. So now I'm at 5 boxes of equipment just for the drone, not counting the GPS and the total station, whatever. So this becomes a serious logistics issue. If you're not driving, you're absolutely not taking that in the commercial flight. So then I like to laser scan terrestrial and then check in for the evening or the afternoon at another NGS mod. So if I'm just doing a boundary survey, why am I going to use a terrestrial LiDAR, airborne LiDAR or ortho, GPS, probably a total station? Why am I going to use all these different pieces of equipment to survey one boundary? You're going to need a bigger plane. Yeah, I got that taken care of, Rob. Yeah, number one, I would rather collect much more data that is necessary not to go back, because I absolutely do not want to go back to this place because it is typically hundreds or thousands of miles away from my home and office. California, North Dakota, Wyoming, Nevada. Don't want to go back 100%. Rob, but all the tools have different uses. That's true. So, like the GPS measures points, the LiDAR measures the whole perspective. So, I like to use the LiDAR to make like exhibits, like fly through exhibits for the trial or deposition, which is kind of fun. Now, what I'm really getting at here is that many statutes and administrative code require the surveyor to independently verify the data collected. And that's word for word from the Florida statute. How in the world do you independently verify the data collected? Well, you measure the same point multiple times. You measure it with the GPS once or twice, you measure with total station once or twice. You've got a LiDAR point with the ground, you got a LiDAR point in the air. And I've been on jobs before where I laser scanned like a polywood, not a dock, but like a seawall. And that seawall collected from the terrestrial scanner was nowhere near its real location. I don't know what the deal was. It was if it was my fault, it's technician's fault, whatever, but it didn't make any sense. And I knew that because I had GPS, total station of the same points, and the LiDAR scan of the seawall. And the total station matched well with the GPS. Neither of them matched well with the um, LiDAR. So what did I do? I went back a different day, LiDAR scanned it again, and it fit in perfectly. But it's like everything is meant to check your work. So like, does this make sense? Does it all tie together? Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it doesn't. Like I've shot these. Everyone says, "Oh, this new Trimble GPS, it can tilt and all this stuff, so you can tilt it and you can get a 45-degree angle and get these building wall corners." Well, I had a building wall corner that it was like the building is four-sided, but it wasn't. It was like this. So the corner was like off in space 30 feet away. Now, why was that? I'm sure it was because of the multipath, because there were other like mid-rise buildings around. So if I didn't have multiple shots of the same point, I never, well, I would have known, but I would have been 1,000 miles away from the building when I realized I was missing a fourth corner of the building. So yeah, I don't know what happened to Rob, but in the end, it doesn't really matter. But it was, frustrating. The last thing I do in the afternoon or the evening is the download. Now, the pro tip is to back up, back up, back up. So I back up with the flash drive, and I've done this before where I got an entire job done. I backed up to a flash drive. The technician deleted the job for some reason, like a mistake or whatever, and then I've lost the flash drive for like 3 days. It was a horrible 3 days. You're stressed out, like, oh, I just spent an entire day. Have I lost this? I couldn't have lost this flash drive. Of course, it's in your pants or in your pocket or something, but I've learned to, number one, have it on the data collector. Number two, back it up to a flash drive. And number three, before you leave the job site, plug in the flash drive to the computer and put it on Dropbox. So now you have three independent sources for this data, and it's not going to go anywhere. So that takes us all the way through from the planning all the way through to the end of the day. And that leads me with questions. So what kind of questions does the group have today I can answer?
Somebody's got to have something an hour later.
Well, Tony, I'd just say that your question about why do you bring all this out and for verification and such, but also because, as I said, all the tools have different uses. You're not going to go to, hopefully, you're not going to go to your car mechanic, and the only tool he's got is 3 different sizes of vice grip, right?
Yep.
And if if, uh, if the people that are on here, and I don't know how many we got on, and they're probably going to go, "Hey, go back and put your feet up, Boomer. You're supposed to be retired." But if they're breaking out the RTK, the magic coordinate stick, every day, first thing when they roll up onto a job site, then they're doing it wrong, right? There's the accuracies, even with the improved accuracies from these new bitchin' units, the accuracies and challenges of GPS will bite you in the butt if you do not understand them.
That's true. That's true. And, I think the survey technicians default to RTK network GPS. So you have one stick, you go measure. And I have recently in Texas, I have a case going on right now where the survey techs set the construction control points with RTK.
Yeah.
And the elevations were important because it's a flood zone. And there's a whole lot of issues. There's like Alta issues, elevation issues, whatever. But one of the issues is we leveled from the nearest NGS mark to these 2 points they set. They just chiseled X's in some concrete and used this as the vertical control. But they were a quarter of a foot too high on one mark and a quarter foot too low on the other mark. So some of the construction was too high, some of it was too low. And now we got this ponding, other weird elevation, flow issues going on in this 500-acre site. So it was only 2 control points within a 500-acre site, and it was an RTK GPS. Now, the really crazy thing is, I'll show you this picture. One of the control points they set, Stewart site photos. Let's see if we can find this.
And if they're only constraining to those 2 points, if they're dealing with GPS and they push out beyond instead of between, right, then you're just magnifying.
Yeah. And the wild thing is this they put the X in this base, this concrete base of a light pole. And this light pole was, I think, like 175 feet tall. So if you put your GPS on this point, you're basically going to obstruct 50% of the receiver. 50% of the sky, sorry. Because this is hard to see, but it's a huge light pole. It's just massive. So no wonder why it's a quarter foot off. My GPS would not get a lock because the sky was so obstructed from the light pole.
Right.
So yeah, exactly. You've got a hammer and now you have to find a nail.
Right. And people don't realize if they're using RTK and you've got, going back to the error analysis sessions that we did here. Geez, Trent, when was that? Year 1?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 3.5 years
where your errors in your system are equal to the square root of the square of the error at both points on the end of a line. So if you have 2 centimeters of error at 95% on your RTK shots, well, that's square root of 8 for your error of that line, right?
Yeah, and imagine you're plus 0.25 here, you're minus 0.25 here.
Yeah,
like
just the vertical, that's terrible.
And the really crazy thing was when they set their ground control points for their drone flight, they only did a 1-point adjustment on these 10 ground control points. So they basically took everything and used a NGS mark that was like 3 miles away. And they said, well, we shot this mark 3 miles away and it's a 3/10 off. So we're going to shift all our control 3/10 up using this 1 point. it was some wild stuff going on.
That's Rob, that was episode 4 and 5. That's how
Yeah.
long ago that was.
So okay,
Air in theory, 140 episodes ago.
yeah, and if you're taking RTK, just the horizontal measurements between two, say, boundary monuments, those boundary monuments should be about a minimum of probably 600 feet apart, or you're not going to meet the 1 in 10,000 precision ratio
Yep.
that's required in many states.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you see guys out doing that, and they wonder why their distances aren't fitting on a 50 by 100 lot because they've used RTK to pop coordinates on the corners when you could have broken out a steel tape and measured between the points and been plus or minus a quarter of a hundredth,
And
so
that's absolutely true. And everybody just wants to use RTK GPS for everything. And it is very useful. It's a great tool if it's if it's applicable to the situation, if it's appropriate, for sure.
There's a couple things in the chat, Tony. From Lori, would you mind sharing your forms? She'd like to develop something like that for herself.
Sure. Yeah.
I can put them in a Dropbox for this particular week. So,
and yeah, I will.
And Tony, one of those form names was something like AF 270 or something. Or
say that one more time.
One of your forms that you showed early on tonight,
yes,
had some number like AF 270.
Yeah. Okay. So, first of all, let me drop these two forms in your trim before I forget and send them to you. So this is the CF 470. That's the boundary stage 1, and then the order form sent. So let me pull up my eMyth circle, because if you're a business owner, you need to read the eMyth. eMyth. I love the eMyth circle. So the eMyth circle is every business has so many components. So finance, management, customer fulfillment, lead conversion, whatever. So FN is finance, CF is customer fulfillment, LC is lead conversion. So the numbers are corresponding to the form number. So you saw CF 470. So every system has a unique number. So like, here's a good one. So say we're going to make I was just doing this today. Say we're going to write a practice exam for whatever. So this is the unique method, and there's numbers here, CF 920, 921, 922. So you're going to determine the category and source of questions. You're going to write a questions, answers, explanations. You're going to do an edit for subject matter. You're going to do an edit for typos and grammar. You're going to make a front cover. This is the system for doing a practice exam. And you can tell people to do things like the content creator will do the writing, the technical editor will do the covers. So the scary thing is we have, thousands and thousands of these forms, and explains exactly how everyone should do their job.
All right.
So it's a really good thing, and you have to follow them, otherwise you get fired.
I just save those into the Dropbox. So
okay, but you can change. You're allowed to change the forms. If you don't like a system, you can always update the system. So it's not like you're, held at gunpoint. But it's like, how do you download a statute for the statutes binder? There's a video for each one of these forms, and it'll walk you through how to go find the statutes and stuff. So we're working on this. Yeah.
Kyle, that's right up your alley. Videos to go with every process.
Yeah.
Kyle also had another question in there. I would say generalize it, but how much did the survey cost all in?
Usually a couple hundred $1,000.
There you go. Good enough. And then Don had a question a little bit later. What is your opinion on manual field books? I always hear conflicting opinions on this matter.
You must do a manual field book
Thank you.
and a data collector.
Nice.
Because when it comes time to like, what did you do? Like you went to the job site on Monday. What did you do? If I ask you on Wednesday, you can probably tell me. If I ask you 8 years later during this lawsuit, you're going to like probably try to hide or run or just say anything that comes in your head because you have absolutely no idea what you did. And one of the things I really wish is that everyone's data collector and instrument had a camera. Like you take a measurement with your total station, it takes a picture. I had this case where they were shooting a caisson, like a concrete bridge thing, and there was so much fluff, which is like, I'm sorry, slough, which is the extra concrete which dumps out after you pour it. There's no way you could have found the edge of the caisson. There's just concrete everywhere. And the surveyor couldn't remember what the conditions were, how it looked like. His field book was a mess. It had no year. Like, was this in 2020, 2021? Like, when was this? It was April 28th. What year? So, field book, lots of pictures, electronic file, like just document everything. It doesn't take any effort. It takes like 2 minutes to make a field book entry. Yes, I like that, Dean. Lots of photos. Bottom line, you understand your equipment limitations, definitely. I have so many surveyors who guarantee results. Like, I guarantee this meets Texas board standards. I guarantee this meets TSPS manual of practice. Now, here's the scary thing. The TSPS manual of practice for aerial photos says you must also meet ASPRS standards. And then if you go to the ASPRS standards, it says you have to meet FGCD position statement 3 standards. So now you've just committed to TSPS, ASPRS, and the FGDC standards. And these surveyors did not do a single comparison of like ground versus aerial data. And they didn't even use ground control points for their topographic survey. And they're guaranteeing that it meets ASPRS, TSPS, FGCD standards. And it's just like, okay.
Who's
like, where
going
do
to
we
call
start?
them on it? That's what they're thinking.
What's that?
Who's going to call them on it? That's what they're thinking.
Well, when there's 10,000 dump truck loads of dirt that's not there, then it gets
Right.
called.
Right.
Yep.
But
yeah,
they
thanks
were
for coming,
the low
Lori.
bidder, and they were the low bidder and got the job.
Yep, exactly. Trent, text me when you're offline. How you gave me a number, like a per acreage topographic survey number. You use as a rough guess. Send me that number. Just
Yes, sir. Yep. Will do.
They did a 400-acre topographic survey for like $16,000 or so, $26,000 or something.
Wow.
Oh boy.
You pay now or you pay later.
400 acres. I don't think you could even get that flown for that.
They had 60,000 photos of when they flew it with the drone.
Oh.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah.
We're right in the middle of this, so I can't talk too much about it, but
No,
it's going to be a really interesting seminar one day.
Yep.
Hey, 2026 CLSA and ALS conference. Here you come.
That's right. Dates are set.
No.
Awesome.
Okay. Other questions?
Anybody else got anything? I was late, but I always love having you on. We've been working with this charity for the last couple of years, and the project we've been working on, they finally brought it out to the public. So I had to,
No, you don't have to apologize, Trent.
I
I'm
had to be there.
glad that
But yeah, it was good.
thank you
Love,
for having me on. I always appreciate it, guys. We will do
love it.
stage 3 in 6 months.
So stage 3 tells us what your findings were on where what did you call it? Riparian parcels or riparian rights or?
Well, stage 1, 2, and 3 are the upland boundaries, and then we'll put stage 4 as the riparian allocation.
All right.
We'll talk more about the never-ending survey. All right. Have a great night, guys. Thanks again for coming, and we'll see you back on in 6 months.
Tony.
Thanks.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Trent.
Did you
Bye.
airplane, Tony? Did you get ready your airplane, Tony?
No, I have lots more now.
Oh no.
I just bought a 4th one yesterday.
Oh snap.
You got me beat. I've only got 3. Which ones what did you get?
I purchased a Luscombe 8E. It's a 2-wheel, 2-seater tail wheel, and it only has 200 hours on the motor and only 2,000 hours on the airframe, and it's only been sitting for 21 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever. I've got nothing else to do. I was in a bad mood, and someone called and said I wanted to buy it, and I was in such a bad mood. I was like, "Yeah, this will cheer me up for sure."
There you go.
That's awesome.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. So
you're gonna step up to you're gonna step up to a Pilatus?
You know, I'm actually digressing, I guess, because the age of my airplanes actually gets older and older. So it went from 1973 to 64 to 57 to 53 to 46. So I think as I'm maturing, that I'm getting more chill or something, because I've gone from 300 miles an hour to 80, and I think I enjoy the 80-mile-an-hour one more than anything. So
takes longer.
Yes,
it's got a better view.
Maybe your next one will be like a
hot air balloon.
Yeah,
no, I was thinking of a DC-3.
That'd be great. Yeah, I've actually been shopping.
Old twin.
I've actually been shopping for a DC-3 for several years.
Get one with the Basler conversions on it.
No, it's got to be. It's got to use more oil than it uses gasoline.
Okay, then that's it is.
Yes. Yep. I've been looking for a C-47, the military version of the DC-3. That'd be really, I'd like to be. It's really interesting just to arrive in style. Like everybody shows up in a brand new airplane. It's like, yeah, okay, you have millions of dollars. Who cares? No one really cares. And then you pull up in something that you built yourself, has a custom paint job, has all the whatever you put on it yourself. That's much more interesting, than just having an expensive airplane.
Yeah,
absolutely, Charles. I'm riding a 1948 motorcycle and a 1955 Chevy pickup.
Oh, okay, that's great. Yeah, I just sold my pickup truck that was almost 100 years old. Yep. So I'm digressing now, I guess, because everything's getting older and older. But it's much more interesting to drive a 100-year-old pickup truck than it is to pay $100,000 for a new one.
When you park outside a restaurant or a bar or something, and you come out, no one's looking at your 2001 Chevy pickup. They probably are looking at my 55. Yep. I know they're looking at my 48 Indian when I leave it parked outside. I mean, it's a small club, and it's really a joy in life to be able to be part of it.
Yes, yep. And they want to, people want unique things. Anyone can buy something, but if you got something you built or something that's no one else has, that's the interesting thing.
Thanks
well,
again,
guys.
Awesome.
I appreciate it. Thanks again for coming. And Rob, when I come out in California, we'll have to show you one of the airplanes one of these days.
Yeah, I hope I get my 1947 Navy on up and running soon. It's been a struggle to say the least, but we're getting
Yes.
closer to the end zone.
Well, you just got to hang in there. I just finished a project. It took me 5 years to put back together. So, and I have another project. It's been 5 years too, and it's running again. So it'll come at some point. As long as you have lots of money to spend, it's all that really matters. You know,
Right, exactly. That's
just feeding
it.
in $1,000 bills. At some point, it'll be finished.
Yeah. I think it's aviation monetary units, AMUs.
Yes, exactly.
$1,000
That's
bill.
funny.
So,
All right,
so
Trent, I
can
appreciate
say-
it. Thanks again, and we'll see you in 6 months, guys.
See you, Trent. See you, George.
Bye, guys.
Charles,
Yeah.
Thanks, Luis.
See you later.
just before you leave, thank you for I use your program, the PS, and it helped me out, and I passed the exam. So I'm like.